just learning like the rest of everyone,
Yeah.
So I got a question for you, right? And so where, like, I'm trying to understand, like, and I'm so attracted to the sculptures, and I want to know, like, what are these figures? What's your inspiration behind them? How do they relate to what you've done in the past, or is it just like the momentum?
Are you talking about like the ones that are kind of like that I did in my residency in Utah that were like kind of like saints? Like,
well, I saw two that I was really interested in. Some were just like these very tubular forms where you were bringing your mark making to them, right? And then there were some other ceramics that looked like these whacked out Martians, like these crazy characters, like. So,
yeah.
So talk about those. Those are, I mean, both of them.
Yeah. So the other ones are more like the first ones you're talking about are kind of like the blue and white. So I find that motif is really interesting and it's really funny. I really have always identified with, like, I love things that like are multicultural, where like I do that thing, I just make these things and do repetitive patterns and things and like traditional kind of blue and white. And like regardless of what country you are in the world, there's a history of blue and white.
Right.
China, Finland, Portugal, Mexico. So like whoever, they're all like, oh yes, I'm so attracted to that because it's part of my culture. And I'm like, cool. It's actually part of everyone's culture because it's a motif everywhere. But I just find it, I love that. Have loved that going around the world. And so I've just been drawn to that. So I started working with that like the beginning of that residency. And then like I was starting to do these things where I was like taking thrown forms and really like cutting them up and stuff. And when I went to do my residency in 2019 at the Utah State University in Logan, I was preparing for an exhibition at the museum there. So I was doing the residency, and then I was going to put most of the things from that I made in there, or a lot of the things in this exhibition. So I was like, okay, how can I kind of explore different things that will eventually work well in the context of this exhibition? And anyway, I grew up Catholic. So I mean, I really called bullshit on it early. Like, I remember being in church at like 5 and just like really at 5, just going like, this is fuck, what am I doing here? Like, seriously, 5. Like, I was just like pretty off it. So I don't have like it's not like this deep thing, but the thing is, I would sit there and the only things to look at were these two felt like tapestries, and they had saints in them. And I would just sit there, and there was nothing else to do for me because I was so devastatedly bored that I'd just like look at those, and they were minorly interesting. And I would just sit. I mean, I must have spent so many hours only staring at those things, and they were never changed. They were always the same. And and then when I went there, this was really fascinating. So I go to, Utah State University. It's like predominantly Mormon. The classes are predominantly young 18 to 20-year-old Mormon women who, it was so fascinating. Like, they only talk about like what they want to do for their husbands, when they're going to get married. Like, they're just in this like this thoroughfare of like what they're supposed to do as young Mormon women, and the way they talk. And I was just like, wow, like being someone that's been all over the world and kind of like experienced a lot of different cultures and had like massive impact from different cultures. And then to see these people just like jumping in this like little lane and going for it made me crazy. Like I was just going like, wow. And then like seriously, it was intense. And then my friend, he was a TA and he was a graduate student in one of the classes, and he would always like kind of DJ music. And I was like, dude, I would just when I'm doing them all, you know that you just need to play death metal always in this class. Like I was just like so really like, something's got to give, you know. So anyway, regardless, those are kind of like in the end, like, and then with our modern or political Cheeto scenario and like all that, and being there and just like the full impact, I was just like feeling so kind of uneasy, and then just really expressing it through those. Because if you really look at those, they're pretty fucked up, like
they're aggressive.
Yeah,
they're aggressive. They're very aggressive.
Yeah. So like I would just like put them together, but it's like that combo between aggressive and candy. It's like they're super bright and poppy, but then if you really look at them, because I'd like put them together really crudely and then like stab them, and they were kind of like saints that have been through a lot and probably more on the dark side, or whatever you want to call it. But that's kind of where those things, they've been through some miles to get where they got.
For sure.
And it was fun, it was really cathartic, and I just felt like, wow, like it was like this next level of expression that really.
That kind of brings me back to what you said about skateboarding, as you're kind of like how you develop your thick skin, where you huck yourself down a flight of stairs, and the first 50 to 100 times you do it, you land like a yard sale, your shoe flies off, but you get back up, you keep doing it. And there's kind of when I think about your work, which I know pretty thoroughly, like I love the idea of you going in and be like, well, fuck it, I'm going to make some ceramic work and we'll see how it turns out. Like that's kind of like, I think that goes back to that root where you're just kind of like, that's how we used to do things. That's where your creativity kind of like thick skin may have come from, which is kind of cool.
Yeah,
that's right.
I mean, and also like I'm very clear. Like I sucked. Like I totally sucked. Like it was interesting because like when I was a kid, there was a woman. I don't know if you know of her. She's kind of has some notoriety as an artist. Her name is Carolyn Case, and she lives in Maryland, and is a teacher there and shows in New York. And anyway, when we were in high school, Carolyn was like the best art student. Like she could draw everything perfectly. Like, and I was just like, and I could not at all. And I was always just like, oh man, it would be so awesome if I could draw like Carolyn. That would be so cool. Like that was the peak. And the funny thing is that we're still friends, and she tells me that like in her class, she'll tell the kids in her class that she's my friend. And then she has a lot of street cred with her students because she knows me, which I think is so fucking funny. Because like she was my idol. Like she still is. She's still a really cool lady and awesome artist. But yeah, so yeah, but it really is that. It really does come down to that in the end. It's just like persistence and just keep on trying.
Yeah. So how do you switch gears from, drawing, sculpting, painting to do something like Sprout? Like, how did that first come about? Or those sort of like surf films? Like, did you have to carve time out to do that? Was it like something you were like kind of building, or how did that come around?
Well, so, like I was a skateboard photographer.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned about like light and composition during that time. And then I started working on skateboarding videos a little bit and filming. And then actually I made, like, probably 2 years into when Supreme started, I made a video for Supreme called The Love Supreme, which was a film because it was all in 16 millimeter. But the day that I started making that film was the first day I ever shot a 16 millimeter camera. And then that was, you know who Cheryl Dunn is?
Yeah.
So Cheryl Dunn lent me the camera, and then that's when I started learning it. But I was surfing, and I wanted to make a film because I was like logging with my friends, since I have a group of friends, like 5 friends, that we just wrote everything. We would surf that little wave at Doheny, and on logs we would shortboard on the other side of the point at the beach break. We would go to Laguna if it was blown out and go skimboard. Like, we just didn't care, and that was very unusual. And then when I started making films, I started filming them to make a movie, because and I would like go in like 7-Eleven, and where Surfer was, there was like Surfer, and then Surfing, and then there was like Longboard magazine. And I remember like just looking at the cover of it and just being like, no, like I didn't even pick it up, because it was just like, that has nothing to do, like the idea of people shortboarding on longboards was just like repulsive to me.
Mm-hmm.
From the get. I was just like, why don't you ride a shortboard? Like if you,
right.
And whatever, I was just riding old 60s logs, chewed up logs with my friends. And so anyway, I wanted to start making a movie about that. And that movie was going to be called, it kind of has a bit of an explanation, but it's called Blue Fucking Corduroy Man. But it was because one time I was driving over the hill with my friend, the Wookiee, and we were cresting the hill. And as we're cresting the hill, there was like waves stacked up to the horizon in Dana Point. And then Wookiee was like, oh, he was like, blue fucking corduroy, man. And then I was just like, well, I got to make a movie, and we got to get that shot from like behind the two people and coming over the hill. So anyway, I was trying to make Blue Fucking Corduroy Man, and then I met Joel Tudor, and then he knew of my work in skateboarding, and then we became friends, and then he was like, oh, we should make a movie. And I was like, well, okay, well, the best guy ever wants to make a movie, so let's probably make a movie. So, and that's when I made The Seedling, but I think those movies generally, like I did over time. The Seedling took like 2 years.
Yeah.
Sprout took 5 years. The Present took 6 years. So the later ones were kind of like longer duration. So I could kind of like just do trips like strategically through the time. Mm-hmm. And I've never been very like worried about like things getting old, because I feel like the kind of surfing that I shoot is kind of timeless.
Yeah.
So like right now I'm busy editing of a full-length film. And it's called YWO, and it's a I filmed it over like the last 7 years, I guess, or 6